Hey everyone, welcome back to Savvy Leadership Academy. I hope that you all are doing well. Today we're going to dive into a recent video that I found of Kendrick Lamar speaking some skills that come with authentic leadership. Obviously, some of these skills should be applied to people just in general as a general principle for their own personal growth and development, but specifically for leaders who want to lead with authenticity. This is just one of those things that really is critical to your growth and development. So we're going to go ahead and share screen and jump into this recording of Kendrick Lamar. He's actually talking about one of his favorite rappers, one of his idols, Tupac, and let's hear what he has to say.
I feel like if you can't respect yourself, then you can't respect your race, then you can't respect another's race, then you can't respect, it just has to do with respect, like my mother taught me.
My sentiments, exactly. I remember watching this years ago as a kid, and I never caught that. He basically said the same thing that I mentioned in his way. That's a trip, for me to articulate it in my way in today's time. Feel what I'm saying? And he's 100% right, and that's a conflict. It's a conflict and it's a taboo, you know what I'm saying, in communities everywhere. Knowing the power of the word and knowing the actual real definition for it, it gets crossed and tangled. People don't like to look themselves in the mirror. That's the hardest thing to do. It's to critique yourself rather than point the finger. And everybody hates change. So to actually do that.
So he says one of the hardest things to do is to critique yourself, look in the mirror instead of pointing the finger. Now, this is a critical aspect of leadership that we're going to jump into here in a second, but I want to go ahead and give Kendrick the floor to be able to share the rest of his point. I'm just going to rewind it a little bit because he said something right after that. He said that people do not like change, in which we're going to talk a little bit about that as well.
Rather than pointing the finger, and everybody hates change. So to actually do that and say, I'm wrong in a lot of areas. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm saying I'm wrong in a lot of areas. That takes a lot of willpower. You know what I'm saying? So it starts with self first.
All right. So he says it takes a lot of willpower to look yourself in the mirror and pretty much say that when you're wrong. So have you ever worked for a leader or someone, a manager, whoever, or just been in a relationship with someone where they do not want to admit that they are wrong? That is one of the most frustrating things whenever you see a flaw in someone and you try to correct them on it and you try to highlight it for them and they do not want to take any responsibility or accountability for their wrongs. They want to just justify, right? And I understand that's part of just people's nature. People get defensive, right? I get defensive at times, and there's times where I want to justify myself, but I've been working this year specifically on receiving feedback. That has been very important for me. And so I hope that's something that you're willing to work on as well. So we're going to go ahead and share screen on a couple of points that Kendrick mentioned. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the authentic leadership. So I learned about this in my program, my master's program for organizational leadership. And authentic leadership is one of those theories that really sticks out there. Many people, especially a lot of young people in the workforce, they want to be led by someone who is authentic, someone who can relate. They're tired of the masks and all these different personas that people put on in leadership. They want someone who's authentic, someone who is really true to their core. Not saying that it's just young people, but that was what was mentioned in the study that I read about. So let's go ahead and jump over here. So leaders who relate to their teams and inspire action are critical to business success. According to a study in the Leadership and Organization Development Journal, employees' perception of authentic leadership serves as the strongest predictor of job satisfaction and positively impacts work-related attitudes and happiness. All right. So in addition, detailed research in Harvard Business Review shows that the majority of employees believe authenticity in the workplace leads to benefits such as better relationships with colleagues, higher levels of trust, greater productivity, and a more positive working environment. All right, so let's go ahead and look into the definition of authentic leadership. So, authentic leadership is a leadership style exhibited by individuals who have high standards of integrity, take responsibility for their actions, and make decisions based on principle rather than short-term success. They use their inner compasses to guide their daily actions, which enables them to earn the trust of their employees, peers, and shareholders, creating approachable work environments and boosting team performance. Authentic leadership's key differentiator is the motivation behind it. The authentic leader strives to create a meaningful relationship with their team as they work towards goals related to their organization's mission and purpose, not just its bottom lines. Okay, so bottom line. So we see here a critical piece like of what Kendrick Lamar was saying is that you have to look in the mirror, you have to be able to see your flaws and be willing to grow from them. And so a key part of authentic leadership is having high standards of integrity, taking responsibility for their actions. So you have to take responsibility for your actions. So if someone comes to you and gives you feedback and says, hey, I saw that you interacted in this way. I think that was kind of rude or whatever the case may be, right? You have to be able to take responsibility for your actions. And you have to do that without getting defensive. You have to be able to receive feedback, right? That is a part of authentic leadership. So this is very critical. Now let's look at some of the characteristics of authentic leaders. So here are 5 characteristics. They're committed to bettering themselves. All right, you got to be committed to bettering yourself. So you have to look in that mirror and say, hey, I have some things I need to work on. I have some areas where I need to improve, right? I am not perfect. And you have to be vulnerable with that. Like even with your team, an authentic leader is someone who is going to be vulnerable with their team. Like, hey, you all, they're willing to repair harm, apologize when needed, tell people like, hey, this is something I'm working on. Please have grace for me. You have to be bold and vulnerable with your team, in order to be an authentic leader. They cultivate self-awareness. So being able to be self-aware of your own emotions, your own biases, your own, even actions, and being able to be self-regulate yourself as well. Having that emotional intelligence is very important. And so just FYI, I'm releasing a course on emotional intelligence on my website, savvyleadershipacademy.com. So be sure to check that out, just to put a plug in for that. And they're disciplined, they're mission driven, and they inspire faith. So those are the key characteristics of authentic leadership. And I think that these are just very critical to being able to grow and pretty much, be an authentic person. So everyone should apply these skills, but especially leaders. All right, you all, sorry about that. I had to change my camera. My battery went out on my camera, but I had to hook up my webcam. So anyways, another key component of what Kendrick Lamar was saying was that people hate change. Now, we're not going to dive super deep into this topic. I'm actually developing a training specifically about change management, but we're going to look at some of the major concerns that arise whenever change has to occur. And so as you are a leader, you have to work your way through these concerns. And so let's go ahead and jump over here to this article from Ken Blanchard. And these are the 5 concerns people have when being asked to change. So Kendrick mentioned people hate change, and let's see why people hate change. So I think this falls within 2 categories, because Kendrick Lamar is speaking from a personal aspect of you looking in the mirror, seeing your flaws, and being willing to accept feedback, and being willing to look within yourself and say, hey, I need to change. I need to work on this. I need to get better. And so let's go ahead and look at these concerns. So the first stage is information concerns. It's about giving people an understanding of what the change is, why it's needed, and why it's needed now. So obviously at this stage, let's say this is more like organizational. So like if an organization is coming in and saying, hey, this is the change we need to make. Oftentimes some people are like, okay, when did we make this decision? What are we actually doing? Why are we doing this? And so those are information concerns that are and questions that need to be answered. However, the second stage is tougher, right? These are personal concerns. So if you are a person who is being asked to change, or someone's bringing up some flaws within yourself, or pointing you out in some way, shape, or form, and oftentimes it's quick to get your people are quick to get defensive, but when change needs to happen, there are going to be personal concerns oftentimes. So if you're like, hey, a personal concern for me could be if someone's pointing out like, hey, Daryl, you were very rude in how you approached this person and how you said this and that. A personal concern with me is like, well, how is that rude? I feel like I need to be assertive in that situation. This is what we need from a leader. You need someone who is willing to step to the plate when no one else is, and say the things that no one else will speak, or whatnot. So that could be like a manifestation of personal concerns about how does this requested change impact me? It becomes about me. It becomes about serving me. Right? Instead of like me being able to receive and see the bigger picture of like, okay, I see why this change is needed. I see why I need to make this change. And so that's what Kendrick Lamar is speaking to. He's speaking to the personal concerns when it comes to change, when he says people hate change. And these are obviously at different levels. These are 5 different levels, which we haven't even gotten into the other 3. But I just wanted to mention that briefly as we wrap up this video. I mean, you got to be willing to take feedback. You got to be willing to accept feedback and grow from it. And so that's a part of authentic leadership. And that's what Kendrick Lamar is speaking to, whether he intentionally is speaking to that or not. That's what he's saying. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. Be sure to go check out my website. I've been dropping some of my core products, which are a couple of courses that I've released, and I'm going to be releasing more material as well. And so, be sure to go check that out. All right. Thank you all for joining me today, and you all have a blessed day. Peace.